Richard Ramirez. A name that terrified California in the summer of 1985. A man who prowled the night, breaking into homes, leaving behind scenes of horror, and vanishing into the darkness before anyone could stop him. The media called him the Night Stalker. But behind the terrifying nickname was a troubled child, a broken young man shaped by violence, obsession, and darkness. To understand Richard Ramirez, we need to go back to the beginning, before the headlines, before the trial, to the life of the man who would become one of America's most infamous serial killers. Richard Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas, the youngest of 5 children in a working-class Mexican-American family. From the outside, his upbringing looked ordinary, but behind closed doors, life was anything but stable. His father, a former policeman, was known to have a violent temper. At just 12 years old, Richard was heavily influenced by his older cousin Miguel, a Vietnam War veteran. Miguel would show Richard Polaroid photos of women he claimed to have assaulted and killed during the war. In those moments, the seeds of violence were planted in young Richard's mind. When Richard was only 13, he witnessed Miguel murder his wife right in front of him. That moment scarred him forever. Instead of condemning the violence, Ramirez seemed to internalize it, and it became part of who he was. As he grew older, Richard drifted further into darkness. He dropped out of school, began abusing drugs like LSD and marijuana, and developed an obsession with Satanism. At the same time, he started committing petty crimes: burglary, theft, carjacking. He was drawn to the night, to the thrill of breaking into homes and taking what he wanted. But soon, stealing wasn't enough. His urges escalated. By 1984, Los Angeles was already on edge. In June of that year, Richard Ramirez committed his first known murder. 79-year-old Jenny Vincow attacked in her own home. The brutality of the crime shocked even experienced investigators, and this was only the beginning. In 1985, the Night Stalker began his reign of terror. Ramirez broke into homes across Los Angeles and later San Francisco, attacking men, women, and children. His crimes had no single pattern. Sometimes he used a gun, other times a knife, sometimes strangulation. His victims ranged from 6 to 83 years old. This randomness made him unpredictable and terrifying. Unlike many killers, Ramirez left behind chaos rather than a clear signature. He scrawled pentagrams on walls, demanded victims swear to Satan, and spread fear not only through his violence, but through the sense that he was everywhere, targeting anyone. As weeks went on, fear consumed California. People bought new locks, installed security lights, and refused to sleep with their windows open. Police struggled to connect the dots until they realized they were chasing one man, Richard Ramirez. In August of 1985, Ramirez made a crucial mistake. After murdering a man in San Francisco, he left a clear fingerprint on a car window. That fingerprint matched a petty criminal already in the system, Richard Ramirez. When the police released his mugshot to the public, the city was ready. Days later, Ramirez was spotted in East Los Angeles. He tried to carjack a woman to escape, but the community had had enough. Neighbors surrounded him, beat him, and held him until police arrived. The Night Stalker's reign of terror was finally over. Ramirez's trial became one of the most notorious in American history. The courtroom was packed, media swarmed the proceedings, and Ramirez himself seemed to enjoy the attention. He flashed a pentagram carved into his hand, shouted, "Hail Satan!" and smirked as victims' families wept. But the evidence was undeniable. In 1989, Richard Ramirez was convicted of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. He was sentenced to death by gas chamber. The judge told him, "You have shown no mercy, and you deserve no mercy." Even after his conviction, Ramirez became a disturbing cult figure. Some saw him as a symbol of evil. Others wrote him love letters and even proposed marriage. He married a journalist in 1996 while on death row. His fascination with Satanism and his lack of remorse only deepened the myth around him. But behind the headlines and the sensationalism, there were real lives lost. Mothers, fathers, children, entire families destroyed by his actions. and those are the names that should be remembered far more than his. For years, Richard Ramirez sat on death row at San Quentin State Prison, but in 2013, before his execution could be carried out, he died of cancer at the age of 53. His death marked the end of the Night Stalker IS life, but not the end of his story. Today, Ramirez remains one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. His crimes continue to haunt true crime discussions, documentaries, and nightmares. But beyond the fascination, there is a lesson. Evil can be born out of trauma, neglect, and obsession, but it is always a choice. Richard Ramirez chose violence. He chose destruction. And while his name will live on in infamy, the victims he silenced deserve to be remembered in dignity. This is the story of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. A story of fear, of darkness, and of the resilience of a community that stood up to stop him. If you found this deep dive insightful, subscribe for more true crime documentaries. And remember, behind every headline, there are human beings whose lives deserve never to be forgotten.